212, two twos, two ones, which is what it's all about and what it's been about. And at this point, why do we even care anymore? By now, most truthers have come to expect a ritual, but there were a few things that made this one a little bit more individual. A proper decoding must first begin here. The date and the length of the video have something in common. The length is 14 minutes, 41 seconds. February is month number 2, 13th for rebellion, the phallus of Osiris or Sur, the birth of a demonically duplicated spawn of demigods. 13 is also 1 minus 3 equals 2. 20, 2 plus 0 is 2, and 22, of course, is 2 and 2. Lots of 2s. And for those fresh off the porch or who have been in a cave, we're talking about SuperBowl 50, 6, 5, and 6, of course, equals 11. 1 and 1 of 11 equals 2. So why all the 2s? And why did this SuperBowl halftime show get all the news and the views? What is this? Brotherhood business. Well, it has to be. Too many fraternities are involved. Too many huge corporations are involved. Too much money is being spent. And too much money is being moved for an event like this not to be used to send a very special, though not new, message out to me and you. And in my humble point of view, this was all about their fixation with getting even with L, or L even. We call it number 11. But with this particular spelling spell, Babel is not what they mean by L. What they mean is what you find in Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, the Lord of the Bible. And that's what they mean by it, whether you find that to be accurate or not. It doesn't matter. These are lunatics, Luciferian, lunar-worshipping lunatics, who not only believe that their arms are long enough to box with God, but they also believe through pride that they can somehow become equal to, even with, El, or the Lord Almighty, meaning the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom you may not believe in, and that's fine. They like it like that. But they certainly know that it's real. So this is how they feel. And when I say they, who am I speaking of? I'm not talking about Snoop and Dre and Mary and them. I'm talking about the fallen angels who run the brotherhoods that run those stars. Too often we forget that these stars are usually just meat puppets who are being duped or used, coerced, tempted into being vessels for extra-dimensional entities, which are called and conjured up by the brotherhood bosses who employ these stars. Now the number 11, or the symbol that we use to denote the numerical value of 11, is a symbol that they use to secretly communicate between one another this desire to become even with El, or godlike, like a god. And that symbol was all over this halftime show and the Super Bowl, in fact. So how does it work? Well, after the number 1, the numbers or the sounds of their names tend to repeat. For instance, 12 has the TWE from TWO, and 13 has elements of the letter 3 and third in its pronunciation. 11 is the oddball because it has additional meaning to the brotherhood that speaks by way of signs, symbols, and numbers. And this is indeed one of their favorite ones, especially when it comes to communicating through and to us by the entertainers. Well, you see, contrary to what they would have us believe, popular star entertainers are workers, not bosses. And I'm talking about superstars here, people that are propelled to the very top of the pyramid, and they must help establish the New World Order. Lucifer speaks directly through M in the song Lose Yourself and says, "Make me king as we move toward a New World Order." The devil has put a lot of stock in these vessels. Rather than risk the chance of one of them suddenly waking up, breaking programming, and saying something off the cuff a la Kanye at the Katrina Telethon. So there are a few ways to ensure that they stay in line, quote unquote. Sometimes some truthers talk a little prematurely about clones and implants, which we know to be tactics that the Brotherhood will employ, if needed. But the most effective and desirable way to keep, quote unquote, stars in line is through a sort of possession that we've covered many times here. You can say that they are this or that, male to female, female to male, and we can never prove it. So let's not quarrel. Those things do indeed exist, but instead, let's take the most likely idea into consideration. First, it helps people who are new to the information to be able to follow and then come to those conclusions naturally and gradually, instead of quickly being able to dismiss you because of your inability to explain why these things are so. It is much more common and more likely that these stars open themselves up to be open and willing vessels for entities which many of us know as demons and devils. There's a very ancient form of mind control and possession which we've talked about many times over the years, which happens to be depicted in the film Metropolis. And entertainers, especially female entertainers, will often nod to this process and this movie by wearing costumes or dress inspired by it. So within the devil's religion of witchcraft, disguised today as New Age, there is a process of twinning, or duplicating the star, by inserting an alter personality, some call alter ego, inside of them. We have many times over the years cited examples of this particular twinning that one can not only see, but that the stars themselves speak of often. And L11, L even, is symbolic of this process. The first one in the number 11 or the symbol 11 represents you or the magician who is to be possessed or entered into by a spirit. And the second one, or the twin one, standing next to the first one, represents the spirit which entered. I'm sure by now many of you have heard the alter ego theory and how popular it is among entertainers to have an alter ego. But the Brotherhood want us all to have an alter ego. This alter ego serves as an additional vessel or a place to store the spirit that they put inside of you. And that theme has not only been running wild throughout entertainment ever since Metropolis at least, and quite probably before then, but that theme has really been ramped up ever since 2020. They don't want you to have clear vision, 2020 vision, so to speak, but they want you to have double vision. They want two yous, essentially. If you can voluntarily produce another you by way of an alter personality, sometimes even through a nickname, in some cases, extreme cases. But if they can produce a second you, or get you to voluntarily produce one, that can serve as legal right for an entity to bind to you. Whether it's at first an entity that you expect to aid or help you, or whether it's just something that you think that you're doing for fun or entertainment value, it doesn't matter. The adversary, if you give him an inch and a pinch, he's going to take a mile with style. He's been around here a long, long while. And he will figure out a way to get in by your permission. Just like in the old vampire flicks, you have to give him some sort of permission. And he's so chintzy, he'll take that permission any way he can get it. He's awful cheap and an awful cheat. They have been reshaping a brand new you for a brand new world that will make anything Doctor Strange has seen pale in comparison. And they've been practicing for a long time, using a template that predates ancient Rome, ancient Greece, and can be found among the secrets of the pharaohs in the tombs of ancient Egypt, and in the writings left on tablets in cuneiform in ancient Babylon and Samaria. This blueprint, or this recipe for disaster to create a mind-controlled slave, was done in order to subjugate the human race, and it was given to mankind by an inhuman race who portrayed themselves as benevolent Men called them gods and goddesses. Men believed that they would be related to them if they allowed for these things to interfere with and intermingle with the seed of man. So they have grown up among us like wheat and tares. And they are now ready to reveal themselves and come out of hiding. They're ready to come out the closet. But first they want to be sure that they will live among a composite. Something that was once you, but something that's been transformed, refigured, reconfigured into a new creature, not in Christ, but in Antichrist. The Brotherhood does it to the stars, and mind controls them, who then in turn turn around and do it to us. Using their magnetism and influence, they want us all under this demonic mind control. Then we can be easily made into the image of Satan. Duality much? The floor of Freemasonry also represents this idea to men of higher degrees. Black and white squares representing many things, including the state of being present and of not being present simultaneously. Their lodge acts as a giant sigil, a sacred circle or a portal, may even be built on a ley line. The spirits are the players in this grand chess game. The Masonic bodies are just chess pieces to be moved as the spirits need. These spirits need vessels or houses, hence the Freemasonic or fallen angel-led takeover of the science of temple building or erecting houses, and hence the decision to build the set centered around the first shot we see of the stage centers on a house. Exoterically, this refers back to the house party days mentioned throughout the Chronic and Doggy Style albums, yeah. But the esoteric or hidden, secret, sacred meaning relates to the aforementioned. See Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 through 45. Also, rebellion, the number 13, the date of the SuperBowl, was a key theme. The stars need to be seen as rebels by the people, so we cheer them on and live vicariously through their fake gestures of resistance of the establishment, whom they really work for, so we never really rebel at all. Oh, he came to destroy your little 4-year-old boy or girl's minds, but he's for the cause. Go Cap. Not. And Snoop Dogg, what a way to fight the power. Yay for gang culture. Do it for the culture. Woohoo! Not. The Chronic album came out the year I turned 20, so this was a big deal for me and featured artists that I not only followed but was in professional competition with at the time. Of course, I didn't see them then the way that I do today, now that I'm truly a man and have put away childish things and thinking. But even I had to fight nostalgia from being torn. Unlike we saw in the Super Bowl halftime show promo, Dre and Snoop look like themselves, okay? Just stop with that. These are human beings that need to be prayed for because they've been compromised and put in a very sticky situation. And Dre is a bit of a diva and probably thought he looked old in the promo, so they did a little digital magic, okay? You know, he's 60 years old. So yeah, they enhanced him in one of the shots at least. It's not uncommon. But don't chase red herrings. It's enough real stuff here. For instance, online magazine The Street talked about the accusations of devil worship by many entertainers, and the two big names that they named in this particular article was Lady Gaga and Dr. Dre. And everyone during the show was somehow connected to Dre, so we're going to get to Dre, but let's start with Snoop and what he had on and why. Well, he had on standard issue 90s California gangster gear, but where does that come from? Why do they use this pattern of a bandana? Is that really gangster gear? Where do they get this idea? Does it come from the Tartans, the Druids, the Celtics, who originally give us these patterns of plaid? Does it relate to the Scottish rite of Freemasonry, who happen to have a lot of things in common with the Crip and Blood dynamic? You see, because we wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And they're all about bloodlines. Those things want to go down your family line. So Plaid and paisley are both occult in origin and have always been used by pagan societies to signify brotherhoods and clans. Modern day brotherhoods and clans of the street have adapted this same wear. But were they aware or unaware? When did it begin? Though the tartan pattern, plaid, is considered as simply a Gaelic form of stitching used to denote bloodlines, its connection to the brotherhood and the grand chess game should not be ignored, especially by the elect, the children of the Most High. Could there really be a bewitching stitching? But of course, the use of patterns and the repetition of symbols is a common practice used in subliminal mind control programming. Psychologists and psychiatrists understand this, and so do occultists. They're using you as the pawns, taking ancient pagan traditions and ways of conjuring, opening up portals, letting you be a vessel through which spirits can flow. And they've turned that on its ear. And somehow or another, it's been adapted. Paisley print was inspired by these Mughal-era paintings of a spirit whirlwind, according to many scholars. So the issue then is the wearing of the print and the origin of it, not the name of the town of Paisley or the people itself. Like their namesakes today, the Mughals of India saw the covering of clothes with this pattern as a sort of spiritual covering, thinking the more of this print that one had on one's clothes, the more protection they get from these entities. Serve us well to stop copying civilizations that fail. Bandanas paisley, shirts plaid, gangster gear, but originally, whose idea? We're being used as pawns on the great Masonic chessboard, and proud of it too. Proudly displaying our unwitting affiliation to ancient European Freemasons and their families, and you pass it on down through your family, teaching little ones to copy those same ways. The blue gang, duality, double-mindedness. Red gang, Janus programming, same as the blue lodge, and the red lodge, Janus programming and double-mindedness. No coincidence, Pepsi logo with the red and the blue. And that the halftime show, as well as the Super Bowl, was held in a place where, again, this is a particular region or area or city where this type of Freemasonic mockery is rampant and widespread, world renowned. Is this the culture that God meant for us to celebrate and defend? It's not even ours and was given to us by secret societies who hate you and want you locked up or dead. Dr. Dre and Snoop were not only instrumental in helping to corporatize and sell out the art, but they were just as instrumental in helping to increase and to encourage, rather than use their influence to challenge and discourage, the violence and hatred men already had in their hearts within the inner cities. Dre was also instrumental in allowing the cultural appropriation of the music by highlighting the skill of Eminem, while intentionally and simultaneously dumbing down and stifling his other artists creatively and encouraging them to reinforce negative inner city stereotypes, according to some of the artists themselves. Together, they took the gang culture worldwide, and they helped to influence the same type of behavior that was demonically inspiring gangsters in these smaller communities to influence folks all around the world. It is as if the devil gave them a pass to spread this particular spirit far beyond the boundaries that it was once contained within. It's not good that it was ever there in the first place, but it's certainly not good that it was spread worldwide. And this was a revisitation of that spreading, and also a reinstating of this spirit. The symbolism that they gave us throughout the performance was all solidifying this idea that yes, the world has now become Compton, just like Compton, like DJ Quicksoul's song, which is what the Brotherhood want, not because of Compton or anything wrong with the people of Compton, but because they wanted to take this particular negative element and amplify it, magnify it, and make it not just a local thing, but make it a worldwide phenomenon. So you want to take this devilish energy, the spirit of murder, the spirit of oath taking and secret keeping, and you want to spread it worldwide. What better way to do it than through people who are able to influence through their charisma and their music? And after the years and years of progress that was made by certain black artists and entertainers who actually rejected negative stereotypes, seemed to be having a positive effect on my community, I personally then began to notice a gradual and widespread change in what people around me accepted as good, generally. Thug, goon, shooter, nigger, gangster, killer, all took on whole new meanings, which is something that you did not see happen from watching violent films or TV, contrary to what a lot of gangster rappers would use as their excuse. They would say, oh, when people watch Schwarzenegger movies or Stallone movies, they don't go out and protest those movies after someone is murdered or whatever, but they blame what happens in the streets on the music that we make. That's a red herring, and apples and oranges, because what happened in the music did indeed happen in the streets. What happened in this music, which really did predate the term shooter, would influence the streets greatly and gradually make things worse. But that argument couldn't be valid, because with music, there's a whole different power and relationship that it has to people and over people. And rappers were more relatable and accessible to the common man than singers and other entertainers before them. Rappers became people's own and their personal expressions of taste and personality, not only in the gang culture, but in urban culture in general, and eventually in pop culture overall. This was a quick and slick and sick way to indoctrinate everyone into the Masonic ritual at the same time. You couldn't get everybody to go to the lodge, or you couldn't get everyone to agree to take the oath, but you could get everyone to mock and copy these entertainers who belonged to these brotherhood offshoot organizations that we know of as gangs. There's lots of gangs in lots of different cities around the world, but in Los Angeles you had this special concentration of gangs, a special organization of gangs, a much higher level of organization, and by proxy you had these gangs who had high members or leaders who were affiliated with Freemasonry. Hence, now we come in with Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre, and why it was important that they came out and represented, quote unquote, for the gangsters all around the world during this Super Bowl halftime show. And there's always been this connection between the prison industry and hip hop. I know that it's been debunked by, certain sites, and other sites still contend that this conspiracy is real, as you see through these articles here. And it is a real conspiracy. A conspiracy is whenever two entities are working together, at least two entities are working together against a group or another individual. That's by definition a conspiracy. So this is a conspiracy. It's not a theory, it's a conspiracy fact that gangster rap was brought in order to help degrade society. And even more sinister and more importantly, to help to draw us all into the brotherhood and the ways of the brotherhood, the ways of the gangster, the ways of the unapologetic sinner. We all have sinned and fallen short, but the celebration of sin is a big deal in the gang culture. Following your emotions and your feelings, not using rationale, not being conscious. But again, everything degraded so much nowadays, the word is savage as opposed to wanting to be civilized. We've gone back. We have regressed. There's a great deal of regression. And so it was only fitting that in this time when they're about to really drop the New World Order hammer down on people, and you'll see financial collapse and wars and rumors of wars, and you'll see new and different lockdowns and new and different diseases. They want to have everyone under the same type of control that they have Snoop and the rest of the crew under. And the best way to control an individual is to take away their individualism and cause them to become a part of a group, even unbeknownst to them. And so we've been indoctrinated, sucking in these lyrics and sucking in these images and sucking in these ideas and these new ways of life and this new lifestyle, this gangster lifestyle, which people who wasn't from the West Coast didn't even know nothing about, until again it was amplified, not so that folks could have fun and be entertained and be edified. It was amplified to create genocide, starting with the urban area, a localized area, and a particular ethnic group, and then spreading worldwide. And it takes a person who would, like Dick Griffey said, sell their soul for $1 million to be willing to pull his own people, to use his own influence and his talents to help to subjugate a people. Dr. Dre is not the first, he won't be the last, but he was the one that was highlighted and was celebrated because he did a great job, quote unquote, for the brotherhood. Something that they've been trying to do for a long time in the great work was to bring all of society into free Masonic thinking and understanding. Well, they didn't do so through highbrow Freemasonry or Red Lodge Freemasonry. They went through Blue Lodge Freemasonry, or the common man's brotherhood. So we became part of this common man adaptation of a Freemason and then passed it on to our families, and those who helped to bring everybody into it were well rewarded. Do you rap or did you write songs? If we looked at my lyrics from 20 years ago, you'll find a lot to condemn me on. So this is not for condemnation's sake. We're not condemning Snoop and Dr. Dre and Mary J. Blige and Kendrick Lamar. These are people who need and deserve prayer, just like we would hear Pastor Schimmel always encourage us to pray for the entertainers that he would be decoding. Let's not forget to do the same thing for these humans. This is to draw a bigger picture. This is to bring attention to a bigger plot and a bigger plan, something much bigger than Dre and Snoop and them. Hopefully, prayerfully, this will wake up folks from their blissful and ignorant state of slumber and loose some of us who may still be bound from the spirit of nostalgia and degradation. This so-called show was less of a celebration than a declaration of war. The war in our minds began many years ago without you knowing it. The pro-black era of rap gave way to the pro-crack era, and then the media made gangster rap mainstream. But back to the duality in both the specific and overall occult symbolism. Duality. The score was even in the 20s, with the winner having 23 points. And of course, we've looked at the mystic number 23. 13 plus 10 equals, this is the halftime score, the mystic number 23, 2 divided by 3, yet another way for them to use symbolism and code and say 666. This is why it's a very popular number among top-notch players at the top of the pyramid. The Stag God also played a big role. See the Februarius upload from the 14th. That's a pagan idea that depicts a patriarchal spirit with a lusty appetite. We get the word horny from the many depictions of this god, shown to be an insatiable lover in every culture we find it. The devil is commonly known to be depicted as a goat. But are you aware of the other two favorite horny horn disguises that he likes to use, which are well known astrologically especially? Gematria is a form of witchcraft which uses numbers, and the Brotherhood do use it in other forms of numerology to encode some things. But there are too many forms of gematria which make it easy to stretch and kind of make something fit into a narrative that you are already predisposed towards. Simple numerology is what they speak through much more often. Many of them are not too bright with their little spirit aids. Many of them are not too bright without their little spirit aids, and the devil gets a duping delight out of showing you what it is that he's going to do before he does it. It's also called revelation of the method. But now that we've established a few baseline points, let's jump ahead to the halftime show. Check out the set, again, which features Compton landmarks like Tam's Burgers, referenced on Element by Kendrick, Randy's Donuts, and the MLK Monument outside of the courthouse. The stadium floor shows a highlighted map of Compton, again, all centering around this house. Quick question before we continue. Do you know that the devils in the Brotherhood, both Boule and above the Boule, do make special provisions for extermination of certain people deemed to be more undesirable and less productive to their society? The answer to that question is not, the Illuminati is after us all. The devil hates us all, brother. So don't trigger. Hold back that fear of a black planet reflex, and do be aware that malt liquor, menthol cigarettes, and gangster rap music were marketed to target a specific ethnic group. That's established, okay? Let's move on. Fight it. Fight the urge to feel offended. Oh, you're commenting. Oh, man. You've got to kick that habit and shake that urge, my brothers and my sisters, because we have to be able to talk together. How can two walk together unless we agree? We have to be able to agree on basic things that are indeed true, even if they may or may not favor or offend you. Okay? So let's move on, because we got a lot of stuff to touch and cover. It's going to take us all to combat this new world order, these Saturn worshippers, Satan worshippers, these worshippers of Kronos, who disguise themselves as sun worshippers and moon worshippers as well, astrotheists. They love to use the theater of outer space because it gives them the ability to use their imagination, and also to use predictive programming and revelation of the method on whole new levels, to bring in whole new devils, which is always the end game goal, to conjure or to open up more portholes, more portals. So here, as you see the idea in the beginning, the very beginning of the Super Bowl halftime performance, you see the Pepsi ball, which many have compared to Mars, or Mars and Earth clashing or colliding, and also to Saturn, because you saw the ring go around it there earlier. This ball, this Pepsi ball, comes flying through the Earth. Comes flying through space, headed towards the Earth, then towards California, IA. It begins to plummet down closer to California. It's getting to where we can see the layout of the streets, and we see that this ball is now coming down to Compton. And we can see the streets of Compton now, where this ball appears to have like a asteroid or a meteor or something. It's fragmented, because you see a piece here and a piece there. And people on the street were looking at it. You know, the little boy was on the bike. He was like, oh my goodness, what is that? Then we zoom back out. It gets black. We begin to zoom back out. We leave the streets and we come again to sky level, and we begin to see that all of this is happening within the big right hand of Dr. Dre. The right hand path and the left hand path are also a big common symbol. And here you see Dr. Dre. He has a spider on fire on his right hand and a web on fire on his left hand. He happens to be age 56. How fitting for Super Bowl 56 that he would be the headlining performer for the halftime show. And here you see light or sun symbolism always used to denote someone being illuminated. He's an illuminated guy. He's sitting behind the board. He put money up for this show. He put up a lot of money to do this show the way he wanted to do it, mixing it at the boards, and to have it set up as a microcosm of Compton. You got the courthouse on one side and the MLK statue on the other side. There's a Snoop. These folks are into astrology. Dr. Dre is an Aquarius. This is happening during Aquarius, quote unquote. Again, we don't ascribe to these things, but they do. Snoop is born on the cusp. These things are important to folks who are into this astrotheism, which they are. More importantly, their bosses are. They may not know anything about it personally. Andre Young and Calvin Brodus may know nothing about this. But anyway, Snoop begins his performance on top of the roof of the house, which is reminiscent of the house party scenes that were in his early videos. He comes down the steps. As he comes down the steps, he begins to perform and transform. In the picture that you see over his right shoulder, he's transformed from the teenage Snoop Dogg that he was into the dog. Then we pan over and we see Dr. Dre dancing kind of sussy boy with a couple of guys here at the local barber shop. Now, because Dr. Dre is supposedly such a notorious perfectionist, it takes him a long time to finish stuff. He leaves people sitting in the studio, according to Rakim and all the rest of them, who went away from Aftermath and potential production opportunities with Dr. Dre, less than satisfied. So he probably spent the majority of his planning of what songs to play in what order based on what he thought would sound the best. This first song that they used was Next Episode, featuring Nate Dogg, who has passed away. R.I.P. to Nate Dogg. But again, the good sound of the music is one thing. The bad meaning of the lyrics is a whole nother. And let's look at how this layout is set up here with the courthouse, which is what you see on your lower right hand corner. And on the opposite end of that block, quote unquote, is the Martin Luther King Memorial, which in fact actually stands right next to the courthouse. So it was kind of an odd way to lay out the stage presentation, because it was very inaccurate. And of course, it couldn't be accurate to scale. Of course, we didn't expect that, but it's just odd the way that these other buildings are jammed in between the MLK monument, representing the Boule monument, and the courthouse, representing the system that the Boule works for. Is this whole scene and setup speaking to us about gentrification? This SoFi Stadium being placed where it was placed is going to displace and misplace a whole lot of businesses in that area, according to people who are from and familiar with the area. Just like in a music video, every shot means something. So Snoop starts off on top of this house that's to represent the house he grew up in, because you see the picture of him and his mom when he comes down the steps. But there's always the exoteric, the outer or the exoskeleton meaning, and the esoteric, the inner meaning, or the occult or hidden brotherhood meaning. And I couldn't help but think as he came down the steps that this was representative, or at least reminiscent, of coming down those Masonic steps, those Freemasonic steps that we've seen in many depictions of Freemasons climbing up and down the pyramid of success. This is a level of success for him he's never reached before. This is a new level and pinnacle in his career, and along with this performance, timed perfectly, was his acquisition of Death Row Records. Interesting. Whenever we're looking at black entertainers who have reached the highest level and the highest peak, you're usually looking at Boule, Prince Hall Mason, or Eastern Stars. So when you see these guys at this new stadium they just built in 2020, and they're able to erect things from their hometown area, they happen to pick these definite Masonic buildings, that Masonic MLK structure and the courthouse, certainly Masonic. And they laid it all out in such a way as to make us think it was just hood. If a Boule op or puppet can't make us think that he's one of us, then he's no good. So you got Snoop and Dre now. They're, Snoop busts out the Crip Walk, and again, supposedly in a rebellion to the corporate powers that be that run the NFL and NBC, right? And then you see all of the common people dancing. You saw a guy in a sous chef outfit and another guy like he's working. And all of these different people, just regular people. They're all just enjoying this music. Again, this is a throwback to another time as they start with next episode. And everything seems to be normal, quote unquote, except for, like I said, the little barbershop interaction with Dre and Snoop come down the steps, and then we have 50 Cent hanging like he did in his original video. That's the exoteric. It's because he did it in the original video. Well, not to a red background. So what has to come to mind for researchers of the occult is the Hanged Man tarot card, which stands for sacrifice and a lot of bad things, starvation and a lot of bad things. That this may have been an omen, telling us that these things are on the way. 50 cent, a type of currency, and he was looking more like $50. He been eating good, but 50 cent may have again been to symbolize, or his presence in the club and being upside down, and 50 cent upside down may be symbolic of the turning upside down of the financial system, something that we've all been saying the New World Order wanted to get accomplished if they could ever get everything in order and in a row like they wanted to, which we know they accomplished this order through chaos. So you have them partying and enjoying themselves and having a good time. Men were partying and having a good time when the flood hit them, right? So it's always in the midst of that. But there's something happening here in this scene that causes for all of the folks in the club to suddenly look up. See? They're looking up now. And 50's even going to point up. He's looking up too. And it's as if they heard a clatter. And on the rooftops, we heard a clatter. Everybody wondered what was the matter. It's Mary J and them up there, and she's got a lot older, of course. But I do digress. So yes, he points up, and the camera pans up, and the first thing we see is those pyramid shapes created by her legs and the dancer's legs. The dancers appeared to have on something that was reminiscent of ice skaters' gear to me. And what came to mind was to hope that your flight be not in winter. Maybe they were alluding to when this thing happens that Mary is symbolizing, it will be in the wintertime, perhaps. There was also the futuristic nature of her and her dancer's gear, which I do believe that's the real key to what's being said or spoken of here. Mary represents the Queen Mother Goddess of the crew. She is the Semiramis coming down in a space egg. She is the Inanna. She is the Isis, Diana. She is this figure of this Queen Mother Goddess who was in ancient Babylon, who was the whore of Babylon, this priestess whore, who would give of herself in order to further her control of the people through sex and religion. And so Mary's dress is very sexualized. She really should have put something on over that. But and so are the girls, and I thought about things from the exoteric level first, as I usually do. And I said, well, she is getting older, and there's a lot of competition in her field. And nowadays, as opposed to when she was popping, all of the ladies in her field are pretty much stripped down to horror uniforms. And hers seems to be taking it to the outer space level, because the same digital banner that you saw behind Snoop and Dre, that you see behind them right there, that just turned blue, it's got a star field on it now. It didn't have a star field on it for Snoop and Dre, but it has a star field on it for her performance. Again, alluding to this fallen angel disguised as a woman coming down from the skies. The coming down part was evident in that 50 and all the folks in the club pointed up as if they heard something. And so did the people who were playing the bystanders, or the community that was outside in the streets, watching everything unfold. So you have Mary and them doing this dance. Sometimes the numbers of people means a lot. Sometimes it doesn't. I couldn't keep up with how many dancers she had up there exactly. But what I did get was that she had the largest number of people with her. I thought this was symbolic of the fallen being, if they were a third of the heavenly host, that's a lot of them. And we don't know if the fallen are going to do it all on their own, or if they're going to facilitate things through other vessels and hybrids. We do know that they are not only terraforming Earth, but they're also bioforming us through the sting and through other things. Many people pontificate. We don't know it to be true, but it seems to be that, they're pulling out all stops to make something different out of you and me. And then also in her scene, you had this misty smoke, which always usually represents some sort of spiritual entity being in. It sounded like to me she was trying to opt out of something. My instinct was that, well, it's the devil that causes pain, but for the resentful and for the bitter, and I do believe that Mary knows a little something about those spirits of bitterness and resentment. For them, they look at the Lord as the one that causes pain. And she falls out at the end of her performance here. She sprawls out as if she were a sacrifice. And again, this, she just dropped a new album around the time of this performance, or within that same week of the performance. And she falls out and collapses as if she's given it all up, or expired, or given all she can, and now she's tired. So this entity has now released. Okay, then we have Kendrick Lamar, born a day after Tupac, so that would make him, to them, a Gemini. Their favorite symbol for duality among astrology signs is the Gemini sign. And you've got all these cardboard boxes. There were 30 cardboard boxes. One of them included Kendrick in it. So you have 29 of these sorority, frat boy, brotherhood representative clones. The blonde hair usually represents a mind control, or a Negro who has been whitewashed or turned into a bourgeoisie servant of the elite because they want to be white. That's generally what that will symbolize. And the washing of the hair or the rinsing of the hair to create that color, symbolic of brainwashing. The sash that they're wearing that says Dre Day, again reminiscent of fraternal orders. They're all carbon copies, like you could order from Amazon, right? They all look the same, kind of a twist or a spin on the Who's the Real Slim Shady video, right? So you've got all of these characters that are obviously representing frat guys. Again, 30 boxes, one of them with Kendrick in it. That makes 29 boxes, or 29 frat guys. 2 plus 9, once again, 11. Kendrick had on some weird stuff now. Some folks were saying it was a throwback to the Rhythm Nation look. He had on 3 5-point flower brooches, right there you see, on his left lapel. On the other side, I think he had one, or, and he's got a cross, a chain on the cross, fashioning a bandana to his arm. He was also supposedly wearing one of Virgil Abloh's last creations. And it just looked kind of weird to me. But he also seemed the most out of place out of those folks. Now, Nothing about his attire said anything to me about Hebrew Israelite affiliation, but I do know that he has said that in the past. I don't know if this is still true. You know, things move fast in that business. And although to the onlooker who has seen the Hebrew Israelite videos of the groups who have formed and called themselves camps, and there you see a six-pointed star represented there, or an eight-pointed star, depending on how you look at it. But again, these frat members making this formation. But the Hebrew Israelite group is a separate thing from the Hebrew Israelite identity and the Hebrew Israelite realization that's happening in America, where folks are realizing that rather than call yourself after a color in a crayon box, one should at least be able to refer to a nationality. And of course, all of that's carnality and banality at the end of the day, but it is what folks have who are here, living now. We're not talking about things in the great hereafter. We're all looking forward to that. But we have to do business until he comes, and we're all here together now. And so there are changes being made in the realization of who we are in the present, in the flesh, in the world, but not of the world. Ultimately, we all want to say we are all children of Christ. But you also have some other things to go to help to identify yourself. To self-identify is the only way to truly define who you are without the interference of other people's projections and prejudices. So that's happening. And for a lot of people, it's uncomfortable because a lot of brothers and sisters who have had this understanding come to them have not represented themselves as Messiah-like in any way, shape, or form. And so I do understand that helps to trigger that mechanism, that reflex of, well, you guys just forget about it. Just get over it. Don't talk about it. Jesus loves us all. Something that has nothing to do with this particular issue, which is a big deal. It's a big deal, especially when you're young. You know, it's not much of nothing to me now, but when young people come to me and ask me about it, I'm not simply going to deflect their questions or ignore their questions and concerns. Like an elder is supposed to do, I will receive what it is that they're saying. And if I find that they are in error in some way, shape, or form, scripturally, morally, then of course I will address that. But I owe them at least what it is that I would have wanted when I was their age and had these same questions. It kept me away from Christianity for so long. It kept me away from the Bible for so long. It kept me away from salvation, soul salvation, for so long that people wouldn't even entertain my questions who were within the Christian church. But outside of the Christian church and in these cults that we all don't like and some of us fear, okay, they will answer those questions for them. Not truthfully, but they will at least entertain the question and give them an answer. So before we let these cults get to these young people, we have to be willing to have some honest and fair, though uncomfortable, conversations. And I do appreciate your patience in allowing for us to do that without attempting to stifle or mute us, dismiss us, or show disdain for our mere asking of something that we only have to ask because of things that have been hidden. And among the truther community, whether we're talking about Christian truthers like Good Fight Ministry, or whether we're talking about secular truthers, It appears that there's only one subject that I'm ever told doesn't matter that was lied about. Everything else that you think was lied about, we can discuss. We can talk about the moon landing. We can talk about the shape of the earth. We can talk about the Mandela effect. We can talk about the chemtrails. We can talk about 911 was a joke. We can talk about this shooting was a hoax. We can talk about the BLM is not representative of black folks. We can talk about anything else, and you with it. And when we get ready to say, well, we wonder about the Revelation 2:9 thing and who were the Jews, and some of these things kind of seem like they would make some sense as to pointing back to a people who could be confused for an Egyptian according to the story of Moses. And if we look at the depictions of the Egyptians, we see certain things. And so, until we say that, everything is cool and with it. But once we question that, no matter how eloquently or compassionately, sensitively, we discuss it, folks tell us we should forget it. Hush. In some form or fashion, words are put together, which at the end of the day serve to shut you up. And that's not Christ-like. So we will be talking about those things more in depth, but I did want to kind of clear that up because I was a bit disappointed that Pastor Joe assumed that if you say Hebrew Israelite, you are talking about a sect or a cult group outside of Kendrick Lamar talking about it. We know Kendrick Lamar's folks was involved with one of the camps, quote unquote, one of the groups, and I think that that's a big mistake. But I don't think it's a big mistake for people to wonder, well, who are the Jews and who were the Jews? Because it's a biblical question. It's a scholarly question. And no matter what the answer is, we should be able to have discussion. Okay? So I did want to clear that part up. But Kendrick compromised. I don't know if he's struggling with things or if he's just said, forget it, let me just ride this rocket until it runs out of fuel. We don't know that. But again, just like we do in cases when we watch they sell their souls for rock and roll, we should pray for them. And I pray for that brother to move toward the Bible and not away from it. It's what brought me to where I am today, where I understand that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light. No man cometh to the Father except through him. And I understand that they lied to us about the letter J, and the J sound existing and not existing and all that type of stuff because they have reason to lie. They don't want you to know the name above every name, which causes devils to flee and every knee to bow and every tongue to confess. But see, I had to get here. And part of my journey here was through brothers telling me, well, hey, did you know that our people, our heritage is spoken of in the Bible? We're not just descendants of slaves. And that piqued my interest. And I said, okay, here's a reason for me to look at it as a young man who was interested in my place in society and in how I was viewed by society. That's something that young people are concerned with and always will be. Okay? So now let's move on. Now either it'll be revealed or they'll put out a cover story about it later, but these frat representatives, these brotherhood pawn representatives of the brotherhood, appear to be forming letters or symbols, sacred geometrical symbols perhaps. We know at least the Star of Remphan or some variation of a hexagram was the last symbol, I believe, that they made, about kind of six long points. You could maybe argue that it was 8 points. 8 is a big deal to them also because the devil would like you to believe he can rule for infinity. But this is problematic because, first of all, there's the affiliation of people who claim to serve the Most High, or the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, with people who serve Lucifer, whether they know it or not, by proxy, and also who, whether they know it or not, and most of them do, just blatantly ignore the Messiah's command to take no oath. So he's with these oath takers, and I don't know if it was a mockery of them or what, because he came out of a box just like they did too. But this affiliation with these oath takers makes me think about how I've been hearing a lot from contemporary Hebrew Israelites. It's not what I heard when I first came upon the information, that, perhaps we should look into our history being in the Bible. When I first heard that information, certain things that are accepted today were not accepted. In other words, today, by and large, I do indeed agree with Pastor Joe Schimmel that the Hebrew Israelite movement, which is different than people questioning the identity, who are the Hebrew Israelites. That's all we do. And folks think that they believe that they've gotten the answer and don't belong to any camp or group or cult. That's one thing. But I do believe that Kendrick, being in this business that he's in, has had exposure to too many other practices and lifestyles and belief systems, to where, if he's following what contemporary Hebrew Israelite camps and cults are saying, then he's probably engaging in New Age practices, which do indeed include the use of crystals and crystalmancy. And if you're not making an ephod, leave them stones alone, leave them rocks alone. You don't need them for nothing. They're nice and pretty. Put them in the fish tank, if you dare do that, because water can be a conduit for the spirits. But leave them where you found them. You're not 5 no more. But, folks using other things, any outside thing. You don't need any outside thing. You don't need a cross. And again, I've not always known the things that I know today. But I know today you don't need a cross. You don't need any of these things in order to commune with the Lord Almighty. All you have to do is open your mouth, pray to Him in Jesus' name. But a lot of them have abandoned that idea. They've totally thrown away the New Testament, or they call it anything that's written by Paul, Pauline propaganda. And many of them have even thrown out the idea of Jesus Christ being God in the flesh. But they have picked up a lot of ideas that I found way back when I was studying Dr. York. And I know to be witchcraft, pagan, given to mankind by the fallen angels, ultimately, and often delivered through different cultures and civilizations that worship these fallen angels as gods, including Egypt and Israel when they were in captivity within Babylon. They picked up a lot of Babylonian practices. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the last days, where you have this great falling away of the church, and ultimately of people who would love the Lord and serve Him. People begin to fall away because as knowledge has increased, everybody's running to and fro, and they're not holding fast to the foundation, to what it is that you need in order to last. And that is a prayer life with the Lord. That is to obey the Lord. That is to have faith, because without faith you cannot please the Lord. And to not worry about these magical things which are anathema to faith. You want to guarantee Just ask him. Let his yes be his yes and his no be his no. And watch out, because he just might tell you wait. And then you want to go grab a stone or some crystal. You want to go grab some special type of magic. So if that's what's going on, I feel bad for him more than any of them on the stage, as he's the youngest, and younger people are the devil's favorite dupes. He gets a delight out of sending them down through there, because a lot of times when you're younger, you don't believe fat meat is greasy. And I was that way also. So let's pray for that young man to find his way. If he got that close to the Bible while in this industry, then there was something still salvageable within his spirit man. So I'm rooting for him. So anyway, so now let's look at the end part here, because right after Kendrick finishes his performance, the mock courthouse explodes, which again, this mock courthouse is on the whole other end of this block of buildings, which separates it from the Martin Luther King Memorial, when in reality, the courthouse and the Martin Luther King Memorial are right next to each other. They could have really made that part look accurate. Perhaps there was something going on with the stage and the lighting or the setup where they couldn't have those two things next to each other like they are in reality. Or perhaps there's something that they're telling us by putting the Martin Luther King on one side, well, the Boule symbol on one side, and the Freemasonic big dog house of court on the other side. And in the middle, you have all these places where the poor, unassuming members of the community is lost in the sauce, dancing and gyrating and listening to some nonsense music and having a good time, while perhaps they're getting sandwiched in between a rock and a hard place with the Boule and the powers that should not be above the Boule squeezing the middleman, squeezing them out. But let's look at this here as Eminem appears on top. And now Forgot About Dre is about to come on as he brings on his most lucrative project yet. Eminem from the Michigan area claiming Detroit. And he stands on top of the courthouse. Not from Michigan originally. Came to Michigan at about 13. But he's on top of the courthouse. The courthouse blows up. Found his way to Detroit later on. And here you have Eminem standing on the top. And everyone sitting around in hoodies kind of worshiping him. Sitting in kind of a yoga pose, worshiping him as the rap god. Then they all get up and rush the roof, where he's now standing, while the courthouse blew up. Is not obvious to us because Eminem is not from there and doesn't have any court issues there as far as we know. He's not locked up in Compton. Perhaps it's that he blew it up, trying to help the black people. Trying to help the city of Compton. But he does his big hit from 8 Mile after that. After Forgot About Dre. After he does a little bit of Forgot About Dre, he goes into Lose Yourself, which is a songwriter's secret masterpiece among rappers. Not a lot of rappers did the songwriter's secret the way that Eminem was able to do it. And here you see everybody just kind of in awe, watching as the rap god doing his thing. You see Mary and 50 sitting on the couch in Snoop's mock house. Dre's on the board. And if you just look at the lyrics to Lose Yourself, now that you know the songwriter's secret, it's definitely a candidate. Anderson Paak is on the drums. They're pulling out all the stops. You got the whole band now for Eminem's representation. So now, what does he represent? He comes at the end. He is really, and then he kneels, which the exoteric is for Kaepernick, and he's fighting the system too. Eminem is against the corporate beast. But on the other hand, I thought that it was him kneeling down to the one that gives him the power and the ability, showing homage to the God that made him rap God. And then Dr. Dre begins to play Steel on the piano. Very iconic piano melody. And then him and Snoop will close the show. Which wasn't, as far as putting together these decodes, you have to look at the story. If you're decoding a music video, whether you're looking at an old school music video like Corey Hart, I Wear My Glasses at Night, or you're looking at a modern day video, the director's telling a story, and oftentimes the director is up on the songwriter's secret. But this story, at this point in time, you see all the guys in khaki suits come out, and it could symbolize folks getting out of jail after the courthouse blows up. That could be symbolic of something happening in the judicial system that, you know, blows that whole system apart, the whole system of law and order blown apart. And again, if their end goal, and we know it is, if the Brotherhood's end goal is to turn us all into these new representations, into these new creatures in Antichrist, then, you know, he wants you to be criminal. He wants you to be vicious. He wants you to be violent. He wants you to be prideful. All of the things that will cause man to self-destruct. And so for this last one here, everybody comes out on the stage. They're all up there together. It's the end of the performance. The regular people are no longer in the streets. You've got these khaki suit guys all in the street now. You know, will the inmates run the asylum, quote unquote? Or will something happen again that will cause for there to be a dangerous element of criminality on the street, like you see in Mad Max movies or in the Book of Eli, where after things have gone kaput in civilization, the lawless are running things because those are the people with the gumption, with the weaponry after everything collapses. And of course, Dre got the hand ready. He had the horn already ready with his left hand, and he throws it up. Well, he points up first of all, and then he throws it up, throws up the horns. And then we pan out to this ready-made cut scene, and there's fireworks over LA. Is it because he just performed? Is it because it's Dre Day? Is it because he's at the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl is in LA? No. That is always symbolic of warfare, those explosions, the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air. I thought about that immediately, and that somehow LA may be dragged into that in a very dramatic way, because this is a dramatic scene. The SoFi Stadium, named for a social finance company. Social finance made me think about socialism. And as we pan out and away from the SoFi Stadium, we pan away, we're getting back into space, we're going back into space now, we pan away from California, now the United States, now the Earth. And that same little Pepsi ball that delivered the meteor that brought down Mary J. Blige and them is now going back from whence it came. There's the ring around it. Saturn representing again many things, Chronos, and the number 8 can also represent Chronos, but it's generally used to signify infinity. But when you see the 8 as in the 8-pointed star made by the Made Men in Kendrick section, and then you see the Saturn made out of the Pepsi ball there. You just kind of have to know that it's got to do with the Satan Saturn worshippers who believe that their Lord came from outer space, or came from the heavens. You know, he fell down to the heavens, like in the beginning of the video, and that he will again ascend back up to the throne of the Most High and be in the Most High's place in the heavens. As always, a celebration of the descension and ascension of Satan to the throne of the Most High again, which they pretend to believe is going to happen. They know that it's not going to happen. They know that they lose in the end. The quote-unquote wisest, if you will, Luciferian, knows that he's going to lose in the end. He's just going to enjoy what he can while he can. But now, it was a declaration of Lucifer and the fallen angels coming down, controlling man, getting man to do his will and his bidding. And also, it was to give us all the message that we have been indoctrinated. We were, through that music especially, we were all changed. Everything changed when that music came out. It went along with pharmakia, the sorcery of the chronic, the sorcery of drugs. That was part of the listening experience of listening to the chronic or Snoop Doggy Dogg, was that you were supposed to indulge in the chronic while doing so. That hooked a lot of people on drugs. It caused a lot of folks to lose great ambitions that they once had because you'd rather just sit around the pad and smoke and look and do bad. And then for other people who were functional marijuana smokers, really functional marijuana smokers could, not let you see that they were smoking or smell that they were smoking, but still they increased in their deception and in their consumption as well. We all did. And that was part of the mind control. A big part of MK Ultra mind control studies and experiments involved giving people mind-altering drugs. And it's a mind-altering drug. Whether you want to adhere to that or not, I have no heaven or hell to put you in, nor am I interested in trying to condemn you. But it is what it is, and it did what it did to the generation that it was targeting. It's my generation. As I said, I was 20 when this stuff came out. And I had to struggle with those things. The things that I was taught by this culture of destruction, this culture of degradation, this culture set to destroy civilization and wreck creation through recreation. And this was a celebration of all of that, and a declaration that what they had set out to do had been done, and the great work was on schedule. The magnum opus was on track. And thank you, Dr. Dre, for your part in that. That's what this was. And so Eminem comes out of it with a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nomination. Snoop comes out of it owning Death Row Records. And Dr. Dre comes out of it as the man. Mary's new album had just dropped, and I'm sure her sales were boosted and bolstered because of her appearance and all of the things that 50 Cent has been able to do to reward him for his compliance and complicity in destroying his community, in causing havoc among the rap community in New York at the time when he came out. Some people credit him for destroying the New York hip-hop scene. Yes, some do. Some folks who are from New York and of status, instrumental in that scene, have said that. We all know that. But this was what we had, a great celebration of this degradation of society and the devil's attempt to turn everyone into a brotherhood member. achieved through the use of gang culture and music. The duality idea was also heavy throughout the commercials because on display also are always his cheat codes that allow him to pretend that he's all seeing, that old devil, per the norm these days. It may be a great idea, and I know some sick and shut-in loved ones who may actually benefit from security like the Ring, but the always home, that part. So he displayed his technology through commercials and his commercial ventures. He did all of this through Peacock, which of course is a symbol of pride and all-seeing eyes. And the whole thing was, as always, a retelling of the same tale. Every halftime show is a gradual step closer to recreation via recreation to recreation, initiating us further into the grand ritual of the great work of establishing Lucifer, who fell to earth, as its overt ruler, and us as his new creatures. The Lord does a thing first, and then the devil attempts to recreate a sloppy copy of it. But God always goes first. Whether talking about the history and mystery of ancient religions who only appear to predate the Messiah because they were written about first by the Father's will, or if you're talking about the sound of letters and when men say they began to exist, all things that God made, including Jesus Christ, Lord of Lords and King of Kings, came first. The devil copies, and then men write about it. Count on that like a calculator. Hear me now, believe me later. But don't doubt it. Be about it or be without it. Get right or get left. I know some of you don't like the Bible. That's okay. Neither do they. The difference is they don't like the Bible because it's true and condemns not only their lifestyles but their very souls until they repent. You have read many books, and they were all written by men. The Bible is written by the Spirit of the Most High, working through the hands of men. We know, as do the Luciferians, that it is a supernatural book, a book of prophecy, a book that, like its true author, transcends time and space and can exist in the past, the present, and the future simultaneously. No other book can do that. Now, there are other books with spiritually inspired writings in them. The Goetia, the Kabbalah, the Talmud. But the spirits that inspired those books were not inclined to help men, but were designed to adapt them to spirits, to cause them to submit to devils. The Bible also contains the most prophecies that have been fulfilled, and as the word of the true and living God, it has a supernatural quality that no other book can claim. Like its author, this book is not bound by the limitations of time and space, but it also allows for us to see the plans of the enemy play out for us in real time, as they do indeed follow the script of Scripture and play their role as the wicked. So now we know the reason and the secret for the upside down symbols like Nike and Newport, the backwards masked songs like Stairway to Heaven by Zeppelin, the inversion of God's creation like the splicing of genes and the creation of chimeras being done secretly behind the backs of many citizens, all done to mock our Creator and to establish this entity that we call the devil and many other names as the king of everything. You can't take something evil and simply reverse it and make it right. Royal ancient Egyptians weren't right. They enslaved Israelites. And with the secret magic of ancient civilizations, the Brotherhood can do what they want to do, while you use it, it can only do what you have to do. Have mercy. Aleister Crowley was about that backward life. It seems like some of these guys. Aaron Donald is an Omega Psi Phi and possibly a charitable soul, but Matthew 5 and 34 and James 5 and 12 say take no oath. Official NFL NBC stock picture from the game. They either posed for this pick or it was arranged that they'd line up like that. There it is upside down in case you didn't get it right side up. Boule member Aaron Donald, number 99, two first names, coincidentally. Oh, born May 23rd, Gemini, on the cusp of Taurus, in 1991, coincidence. It's not a stretch. You can see what I put in the search, right? I wasn't looking for that picture with the 666, but I found another one here too, as you just saw, with Aaron and Greg, double G. Greg Gaines, double G, used to be number 99 on his old team. And Aaron is 99 now. Even when they showed some official footage, this is an official stock photo from USA Today, they made sure to put that same triplet on display. Can't make it up. I didn't make it up. And also, Stafford is also number 9. The symbol for 9 upside down is a 6, yes, but 9 can also be the end of the natural number cycle and can represent the end. Numbers, like the notes of a scale, are not inherently good or bad. The number 911 in Brotherhood code means the wizard reaching God's status without God, but by the aid of another spirit. SoFi Stadium opened up in 2020, key year for duality. Social Finance Technologies Incorporated, sounds like socialism to me. If you Google SuperBowl 2022, you get this: fireworks or rockets display. Uh-oh. Sounds like war and rumors of war programming to me. China or the East could have been symbolized by the Bengals. This could have been some sort of symbolic representation of China being dominated and having to go ahead and wage war against mighty Rome and losing. It certainly represents Asia, which is where you find the Bengal tiger. And Asia includes China, India, and Russia. Wars and rumors of wars concerning the Ukraine. LA is a rebellious place, and the ram represents rebellion as well. So it sounds like war and rebellion. Could be predictive programming for war, but which kind of war? physical, spiritual, or both. If our instincts are right, it signifies that although the Rams won, LA may experience fireworks. The horn is connected to the Angeles in Los Angeles, symbol for Rams. Horned or fallen angel activity, looks like to me. And the two thugs or thieves on the cross pose. And Christ's not there. Please don't get me wrong. These are human beings in most cases. And they err as do we all. Nobody listening or commenting is perfect or without sin. And most will likely sin again. Though our daily prayer is to have the strength to avoid sin and wrongdoing altogether. And be better each day than we were the day before. We regret our sins and trespasses against others. This is what normal, well-adjusted humans do. We feel regret, remorse, guilt, shame, compassion for those we've wronged, and we make a serious effort to not only stop wrongdoing, but to fix whatever we may have damaged by our wrongdoing. That's normal human behavior. After some artists made certain life changes, they refused to sing certain songs that they had written prior to those changes, or things that they said when they were young. They didn't want to stand on stage and say those same things again, especially if those things were wicked and rooted in tempting and driving and convincing people to sin. And even worse, Dre had some of the worst lyrics in his verses, though he didn't write them. I can remember my grandma chastising me for hanging out with them wrongdoers. And I did hang out with them. But it made me feel ashamed because it was a low-down insult for an elder to call you a wrongdoer or a thug. But the way it is today, no matter what positive things that we may do or say, we actually still are the only people group that makes and celebrates music that has absolutely no regret for the increase in killing, abortion, unwed parenting, sexually transmitted diseases, degradation of women, and lack of regard for the lives of your elders, brothers, sisters, and children. Yet we call it our culture. Did we define this for ourselves, or was our culture designed for us by those out to get us, those who are puppets of the brotherhood, and by extension, puppets and vessels for the fallen angels? Well, that's cuffed up, because it is bondage and we're cuffed up, yet still we clap and say, yay, we got a chance to be a part of the debauchery. We want to be equal. Equal to what is my question.